We're back with another Friday episode of Mac Stories Unwind, the show that's all about the picks. Today's episode is brought to you by our Automation April sponsor, Collide. Federico Vitici, how you doing?
Hello, John. I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing really well. We're wrapping up Automation April. It's Friday, and the 30th is the last day of Automation April, kind of, which is Saturday. But we're still judging the shortcuts because we got hundreds of shortcuts to look at. We've got 10 judges. They're all working very hard to get their judging finished. Then we're going to pick the winners and announce them very soon on Mac Stories. But we haven't quite gotten there yet, so we've got a little more work to do. I think it's going to be a busy weekend for you and me.
Yeah, I have a long weekend ahead, and I'm just going to sit down, drink a bunch of coffee, and go through this huge list of shortcuts that we have.
Power through,
do it all at once in 2 days. I'm cramming as much as possible, and that's how I'm going to do it.
All right, well, that makes sense. I actually have been doing most of my judging over the weekends, and I've done something similar where I'll just sit down for a few hours and power through a bunch of them. And I think it's a pretty effective way to do it because you see a bunch of the shortcuts at once in comparison to one another, which I think gives you a better idea for which are the best and which ones don't quite make the grade to be one of the top ones. So in any event, we'll get that done and we'll get that going really soon. But for today, we have picks, and we've got 2 brand new picks for everybody. And I know you don't have a video game for us, but you have something video game related that I'm very excited to hear about because I've known about this, but I haven't actually dug in yet. So I'm going to pick your brain on this, I think.
Well, I promised I wouldn't pick more video games for the foreseeable future. So I found a loophole, though, which is I'm picking a website about video games. So it's not technically a video game, but yeah. So the website today's pick is a website, right? And it's called VGCguide.com. Now, VGC, you probably heard me mention it before on Unwind and on my other podcasts. VGC stands for Video Game Championships. It's the official format for playing competitive Pokemon. If you're new to this, I think I did in 2020 during the lockdown when I really got into this topic, an episode of Remaster all about explaining to the best of my abilities the basics of competitive Pokemon.
Oh, you did. You explained it all to Mike. It was really good. I thought you did a great job with that.
Yes.
I should go back and listen to that again because it was fascinating to me.
So for context, most people think of Pokemon games as the games where you catch the Pokemon and you have a Pokédex and you gotta catch them all to complete the Pokédex and finish the story. Mm-hmm. That is absolutely the case. And you can play single-player Pokemon games like that, including the latest Pokemon Legends Arceus for Nintendo Switch. That's what the games are made for. However, there's also an multiplayer, and if you want online, otherwise in-person, component to those games. And it's a competitive battling for your Pokemon team. And Nintendo recognized this competitive aspect of Pokemon many, many years ago. And I don't remember when, but they established the official format for playing competitive Pokemon with an official circuit of regional tournaments, national tournaments, international tournaments, and of course, Pokemon Worlds, which is the World Championships. And the World Finals are actually coming back this year, this July in London. And there's a whole structure for participating in these tournaments. There are rules. You can look all that up online, but it's organized by Nintendo and the Pokemon Company. Now, the thing about VGC, again, it stands for Video Game Championships, and it's the official format for playing competitive Pokemon, is that it goes really deep. Meaning,
yes,
Pokemon may seem... It's so fascinating to me because I've been playing Pokemon games all my life. And I've always been familiar with the more advanced sort of meta game of Pokemon, like what you do after you finish the main game, after you finish the story and the Pokédex. I was always being sort of somewhat aware of its existence, but I only decided to really get into it after the release of Pokemon Sword and Shield in 2019, COVID happened and the lockdowns happened. And so with a lot of time now available, when I was stuck at home, I started watching these videos and I realized, this is actually fun. And I started learning the basics of playing online against other people, because the game is very different from when you just play on your own. You got to put together a team of 6 Pokemon, but you can only bring 4 when you battle against someone else. And there are restrictions in terms of which Pokemon you can use and so forth. So I got really into that in 2020. And I played for the entire year of 2020, almost every night. And I got pretty good at it. Obviously, I never participated in any official tournament or contest because I felt like it was too soon for me. And I played until the spring of 2021, last year. And then I got so busy last year with the launch of Calliope and the new Club Max Story Steers that I essentially dropped the game. Like I stopped playing and Pokemon and sort of following the scene altogether for until really this winter, when I slowly reapproached the game and the competitive aspect of it. And so this website comes at exactly the right time for me. So VGCguide.com is this all-in-one resource for anyone who's interested in learning more about playing competitive Pokemon. It was made by 3 excellent Pokemon players. I actually know all the 3 of them. We've talked a couple of times on Twitter. Aaron Traylor, Wolf Glick, and Aaron Zhang. Wolf and Aaron, they both have excellent YouTube channels that I think I mentioned before on Unwind. I'm pretty sure I did. Wolf is, of course, a former world champion of competitive Pokemon. He won in 2016. He's the 2016 world champion. And he won a bunch of things, including the Players' Cup in 2021, which is the online thing that Nintendo organized during the lockdowns. And of course, Aaron Traylor is also a longtime VGC player since 2011. Won multiple regionals and, he got second place in nationals in 2016. He got in top 8 and top 16 at the World Championships. These folks, they know what they're talking about. And of course, VGC Guide was also made by other people. I went looking on the About page. Marissa, Scarlett, and Max, also the authors of the guides that you will find on this website. And this is what I really like about it. They cover every single aspect of VGC, from getting started to from explaining what it is and introducing you to this very topic, to getting started with the very basics of how do you prepare a Pokemon for competitive play? What is team building? How do you work with the specific stats of an individual Pokemon, right? How do you train for yourself? How do you battle online? What kind of play style do you want to have? And now that I'm reapproaching the game, like I said, it goes really deep. And you would be surprised if you always thought of Pokemon games as the silly games that your 5-year-old plays to catch Charizard and Pikachu. While that is still true, I can also say that it is one of the, if not the most complex RPGs ever made. Just because of the sheer number of opportunities that you have when you play competitively, in the number of options at your disposal. Different move sets, different items, different Pokemon, obviously, different combinations of different Pokemon. Like, you have infinite possibilities when it comes to VGC. But what VGC Guide does, and that's why it's really helpful, and that's why I'm picking it this week, is it gives you a framework, a base structure to get started. It teaches you the basics. And what I really love about what they've done, and with the other authors on the website, is it's not just theoretical, right? Because they could have done like the theoretical guide where they teach you the basics in theory. But what they do on the site, if you open one of their guides, like they have practical examples of what they're talking about.
Oh, nice.
So they're like, okay, go watch this video. And you can see in this video from, the 2018 World Championships, this person chose this move, and here's why that mattered. Like, they give you a breakdown of actual things. And what I also like about this is that they say, we're not talking about the latest format of online play. We want this website to be evergreen. So even if we give you examples from years before, those lessons are still applicable today, right? And it's a massive effort. Like there are, I don't know how many hundreds of guides in here. Again, for
I was going to say this must be a very deep website in terms of the amount of content there, right?
Yes, just the amount of content and the examples and the use of screenshots to explain things. It's super well done, and honestly, like it teaches you from the simplest things to the more advanced topics like the damage calculator, because that's also a thing that exists for most competitive players. They know their calcs, as they call them, off the top of their head. They just know how much damage a Pokemon is going to do to another Pokemon in a specific situation. But it covers those advanced aspects. And what I also love is the practical advice for getting ready for an in-person tournament. Now that those are possible again, like those tournaments, how do you prepare? What do you bring? Like, how do you pack for a tournament, right? What is some common advice for, because imagine that you need to wake up early in the morning and just play dozens of Pokemon games one after the other. Like that's physically exhausting and also mentally exhausting. So all this to say, if you heard me talk about this stuff before and you never had time, or if it just seems daunting to you to get started, that's precisely why you should visit vgcguide.com, made by excellent people for a community that I wish was bigger and more well known. And hopefully now that local tournaments are possible again, within, of course, COVID-related restrictions, hopefully, more people will be interested in playing competitive Pokemon, because at the end of the day, it's fun. So, yeah.
Right. Now this makes it more accessible to more people, because it brings them up to speed in a way that would be difficult if you're on your own doing what I assume a lot of what you did was just discovering slowly but surely a bunch of different YouTubers and other things like that.
A lot of trial and error and taking notes and bookmarking things. Yeah. Now you have it all in one place.
Did they build this on top of like some existing content, or did they just
it's all new
this
content.
Website just
it's all new. It's been in the works for years, I think.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm really impressed. I mean, there's a lot here. This episode of Mac Stories Unwind is brought to you by Collide. Collide sends employees important, timely, and relevant security recommendations for their Linux, Mac, and Windows devices right inside Slack. Collide is perfect for organizations that care deeply about compliance and security, but don't want to get there by locking down devices to the point where they become unusable. Instead of frustrating your employees, Collide educates them about security and device management while directing them to fix important problems. Visit collide.com/MSU to sign up today. That's KOLIDE.com/MSU. Enter your email when prompted to receive your free Collide gift bundle after trial activation. At Collide, they know that end users are IT admins' most significant untapped resource and key to solving the most challenging to fix security issues, including instructing developers to set passphrases on unencrypted SSH keys, finding plain text two-factor backup codes and teaching end users how to store them securely, convincing employees to uninstall evil browser extensions that may sell their browser history, and a whole lot more. You can try Collide with all of its features on an unlimited number of devices for free for 14 days, no credit card required. Try it out at collide.com/MSU. That's KOLIDE.com/MSU. Our thanks to Collide for their support of Mac Stories Unwind. All right, Federico, I've got a pick. I've got a movie. Last weekend, I sat down and watched The Batman, which is a reboot of the Batman series that is still in theaters, but it also arrived on HBO Max about a week and a half ago. And that's how I watched it. I watched it on HBO Max. I watched it on my iPad Pro because we were in a hotel over this past weekend. And I found that was a really good way to watch it because this movie is very dark. A lot of the modern Batman movies are very, very dark, but this one was particularly dark, all set almost entirely at night while it's raining, and having a good screen with good contrast was very nice for just the overall experience. Now, The movie stars Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz, who you may remember I recently recommended Kimmy, which is a movie that I believe was on HBO Max too, but she plays Catwoman. And it's directed by Matt Reeves. Now, we've seen an awful lot of different Batman movies over the years, going all the way back to the 80s when they were kind of goofy movies. This is more in the genre of the Christopher Nolan version of Batman, which is dark and moody and atmospheric. And more like those movies than, I guess, there was the more recent Ben Affleck version of Batman, which is okay, but he was kind of an elder statesman in those movies where he was a little bit of an older guy and a little more sedate. And I don't know. I kind of like the dark, creepy Batman. And so this is a bit more of a return to that. And recently, just very recently, a sequel has been announced because I guess the movie's doing very well. The Batman 2 will be coming out at some point in the future. But the plot here is that the Riddler has emerged and is killing politicians in Gotham. The mayor is killed, the DA is killed, a bunch of people start being killed, but there's more to it than just murders, in that the Riddler is leaving clues for Batman along the way, leading Batman not only to search for the Riddler and try to capture him, but also understand what these riddles mean and what's going on. Because what the Riddler is doing is trying to expose corruption in politics and the criminal underground in Gotham. So it's, at its heart, this is a detective story, which I think is why I enjoyed it so much. Because, Batman's always been an interesting superhero to me because he's not really a superhero so much as a guy with really good gadgets, which I suppose there's a reason why that appeals to me. But in any event, he's this really dark, moody guy who's out there acting as a vigilante, protecting the city. And part of the themes that are touched on here too are that while he's kind of transformed from vigilante who is there working alongside the police to stop crime in Gotham, but is also a vigilante, so he's not really inside the system of government and police and protecting the citizenry of the city. But by the end, he's kind of more transformed into a more traditional superhero working with the police, not so much in parallel to them. This is an extremely long movie. It's 3 solid hours, and it just keeps going and going and going. So you have to kind of make some time for this movie. A lot of really long movies like that turn me off and I lose interest. This one did not, though. The pacing is very good. You're kind of led on this hunt for the Riddler as he's murdering politicians, and it doesn't get samey or boring at any point, I don't think. I mean, it just does a really good job of engaging you with the mystery and the clues and what's going on here. And mixed in with this is Catwoman, who makes an appearance and is both doing some similar things to Batman in terms of being a vigilante, trying to steal money from the mob, and in that sense is a very traditional Batman type story. But I really enjoyed the way it reboots the series. I mean, I saw some criticism online in some of the reviews that maybe this version doesn't do enough to set itself apart from some of the earlier versions of Batman. But I think that's okay. I mean, Batman is meant to be a moody, dark character. And I think the Christopher Nolan movies are some of my very favorite ones. And this is, as I said, very similar to that in terms of feel and atmospherics. So it works particularly well, I think. And while it doesn't really change the core character of Batman in a meaningful way, it's still really good entertainment. And I really enjoyed the story, the detective story, because this one is really less about the technology and the glitz and the superhero aspect and more a traditional detective story than anything else. And of course, we've got moody, emo Batman walking through his day, trying to solve crime and being depressed about everything, which is always kind of fun to watch. But yeah, it's a great movie. You should maybe give it a shot, Federico, on HBO Max sometime. I know you're not a superhero guy. I say that all the time, but this is a good story. So, all right, Federico, that's it for this week with Unwind. I want to thank our sponsor again. That's Collide. You can find me and Federico over at macstories.net. Federico is on Twitter and Instagram, where he is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next Friday, Federico.
Ciao, John.